the ending that they actually shot, that's in the Joe Dante work print, there's a different ending of the movie where he says, "Carol, I've been hiding something from you. Something I need to tell you. Like, you got fired. Like, how did you know? When you came home on Friday night, you have very particular body language, and that body language just said no job. It's okay. I'll figure something out. I'm just happy you're alive," basically. And like, it was interesting. Like, I ultimately think they made the right choice of not doing that, because the thing about it always is that they said Ray Peterson is the reluctant marshal in the old Western who knows he's got to deal with the criminal element in his town, but doesn't really want to because he's a little scared of what things might happen if he puts his foot down. So ultimately, in those Westerns, he does what he needs to do to get the criminal element out of whatever little town he's the marshal of. And he gets to say at the end, like, he gets to have that moment of, look after the town for me, deputy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, I got to see about a lady in the farmhouse down the valley or whatever. Like, he gets to have that really cool triumphant moment, because that's what this is it is a send up and an homage both to old Hitchcock movies and old Sergio Leone Westerns. And somehow it is both in the perfect proportion. And to me, it just works.
I kind of thought nothing feels out of whack in this movie at all. But I did feel like their bickering at points got a little bit aggressive, like, as a couple. And so to me, I was like, oh, I wonder if we're going to find out that he got fired and is hiding it from her, because it would also justify why he's kind of like psychologically vulnerable to all of the other stuff. Because it seems very much like he knows better and then he doesn't, but like it would kind of justify that, which is kind of where my head was at. But I don't think there's a wrong or right choice. It's just interesting that Tom Hanks wanted to take the liberty to do that, because it seems to me that sounds like he, as an actor, was looking for something to justify why that psychologically happened. That's really, really interesting, because that was kicking around in my head when I watched that.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that there's something about, like, the marriage is in a lot of ways like not hanging by a thread, but hanging by maybe 3 or 4 threads. You know what I mean? And there's
they love each other. They don't always like each other. Like that. Yeah.
And there's something about it there that is it's very it works, because you can tell that they love each other so much, which is why they fight, because they want each other to be this thing. Like, he can't come out until he resembles the man that I married. You can tell that, like, she was desperately in love with the man that she married, and this guy has kind of become lazy. Yeah. And that's not who she married. And that's part of it, but also he's susceptible to weird suggestions from the crackpot guy next door. And yeah.
So, at one point in the movie, she even says, like, well, you're smarter than those guys or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
So, which was like a nice little thing.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Very interesting.
So yeah, that's it.
I can't say enough about all of the acting, and it was impeccable. But Tom Hanks is he's just one of the best actors in Hollywood ever. Like, he's just so damn good at whatever he's given. And this, he wasn't given a ton, but he injected so much into it. It's so well done.
I'm just literally playing on my screen up here right now, and I'm watching him come out of the house as it's on fire. And I had forgotten that he doesn't actually walk down the 3 steps. He slides down them. Like, his feet kind of slip off the top step and then slip off the next step. And just the way it's done is just so.
He's not like a physical comedy guy, but he is like very physical. I remember Apollo 13 is one of my favorite movies. Yeah. And when they finally, spoiler alert, they get home safe. When they land and they're coming back to Earth after they've landed in the sea, like, his performance of, hey, I haven't had gravity for however long is like unbelievably real. Yeah. Things you wouldn't think about as a viewer, but he brings to life. You're just like, oh damn. Like, He's so good. He's
Yeah.
so good.
He really is. And um there's just so much. The thing about I always think of him as not a physical comedy actor, but he's kinetic. Like he's always moving. Like everything about him is because I think of physical comedy is like I'm doing this to get a laugh because of the way I whoop. But
Yeah, like Jim Carrey or
he never does anything to get a laugh. Everything is entirely rooted in the character that he is playing. And he always finds a way to make the characters have that kind of kinetic energy about them, because that's just who he is.
Yeah, his whole body's just that person.
Yeah.
And whatever he's doing. It's really, really good. And this, to me, part of the reason this whole movie works is how grounded it is. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the lack of there being a supernatural element to me was so important, because I think my favorite scenes are the ones where they actually go introduce themselves like a neighbor would, and they're not being anything supernatural, but something spooky up is like the saving grace of all that.
Right.
I think it's so good, and its success is rooted in how grounded the whole movie feels. In my opinion, I think it's just so good and separates itself from a lot of, like when we did Transylvania 65000.
Yeah.
The whole issue was that movie was it was trying to be a parody at the same time as trying to tell its own story. Yeah. This was the opposite of it.
Yeah.
That to me, like this was just a story that got told that had comedic elements, that had underlying horror elements, that worked really, really, really well.
Yeah.
RESPECT. Click the subscribe button and find out what it means to me. Nah, that doesn't have a ring to it. But if you like videos about real news stories that are funny, stupid, or weird, subscribe now.